Hello, and thanks for joining us for another episode of Mid-American Gardener. I'm your host, Tanisha Spain. And joining me in the studio today are two of our panelists who are going to be answering a lot of your questions, and they brought some great things from their garden to show and talk about. So we'll have them introduce themselves, and then we're going to jump right in. So John, we'll start with you.
Okay, I'm John Bodensteiner. I'm a Vermilion County Master Gardener, and I enjoy just about any kind of plant there is. It's green, it doesn't even have to be green. Some of the plants are not green, so I've got some silver ones. So any of those I enjoy growing.
Excellent. All right, Ella.
I'm Ella Maxwell. I'm also a master gardener up in Tazewell County, also a horticulturist, and I've had a long career in the garden center arena, and I have a large yard. I like trees and shrubs, and especially perennials, and I brought some show and tells as well.
Awesome. Karen, you're going to be in trouble with Karen when she sees the show.
Yeah.
All right,
we're coming together next time.
Okay, but people are going to say, Ella without Karen? Karen without Ella? I don't know how to feel. So, all right, we're going to jump in with some questions because you guys sent in some great ones. And John is going to tackle question 37. This is about holly shrubs, and I'm going to paraphrase just a bit. This is Anna Jo Mount. She says the prior owners of her house planted male and female holly trees. Last year, she had some issues with fungus, so she treated and cut them back and is wondering, should she expect a significant reduction in the number of maturing berries this year? Does each flower have to be visited by an insect, or is the holly partly pollinated by wind? So is last year's activity going to affect this year's growth and fruiting?
Well, being hollies are dioecious, which means they have a male plant and a female plant. Mm-hmm. It could.
Okay.
But one male tree, shrub, can pollinate many female, depending on the size and how close it is. I did some research, and they said that one male can pollinate up to 20. Most of the time you want a 3-to-1, 5-to-1 ratio, but the bees and the flies that visit the male plant, if you've ever seen a bee and the back legs are all yellow, that's the pollen that is collected. So it's not going to go to the male plant and then go visit the female plant and then have to go back to the male plant to get more pollen. There's so much pollen on that male, on the bee, that it can provide, do many pollinations at the same time. Now, one thing for the, being she trimmed back her male plant, she's going to want to make sure that it has lots of moisture and maybe even a little bit of fertilizer. I wouldn't not a lot of growing, not nitrogen, but maybe a little bit of 10-10-10 or something like that. And just a little bit, just to make sure that
just
it is healthy.
Just baby it a little.
Make sure that she has, and I'm sure she did this, that she has the same species so that they're flowering at the same time. If she was getting berries before, she probably does. And, kind of like blueprints and blue princess, that's the same, because if you get different species of holly, one will bloom this week or this month, and then the other one will bloom later. And as far as air pollination, very unlikely. The pollen on holly is very sticky, and so it's unlikely that they'll get wind pollination. Each flower on the female does have to be pollinated individually, but the bee is going to go in there and get that nectar, and like I say, it doesn't have to go back to the male holly to get more.
Right. And just commenting from the garden center standpoint and production is that in the past they had the plants as separate, sold them as male and female, and you can still find that. But it was revolutionary when they put the two compatibles together. They called them the royal family, or, some kind of family name. And that's where they actually took small male and female plants together in the same pot and then grew them out. That ensured that you were always going to have berries, because people wanted to know, well, how far apart can they be? And it can be up to about 200 feet, actually. But again, like John had said, you don't need that much male. One's going to do it.
You just want to make sure it's good and healthy.
Yeah.
So that it's, and moisture is the big thing. Even for the berries and for the pollen producer, both you want to make sure that once it gets dry, that especially during pollination time when they're flowering, that they have enough moisture so that pollen is produced.
Okay. All right, Ella, you brought some pretties with you.
Yes,
You've got
I
a box
did.
full of stuff.
Okay.
Where do you want
so
to start?
The first thing I want to talk about is knowing the name of the plant and finding out the name of the plants that you have, because many of the questions that people send to us, they don't know what they have. So the other thing is, when does it flower, and what kind of seeds could it make that maybe I would want? And so right now is the best time to collect 2 perennial flowers. One is the hellebore. So, you know, I love hellebores.
Yes.
And so I have a paper sack, I have it labeled, and I have just cut off these flower, these were the flower stalks, and you can see that many of the double flowers won't set viable seed, but you can see this enclosed seed pod here inside here, and you can also see, if we get a close-up of this a little later, how it's opened up. But there are dark little seeds in here, and so I'm going to store this just cool and dry in my garage, and then there's going to be seeds here in the bottom, and then I'll be able to separate those, and then I can either seed them immediately because they are kind of viable, or they can, you know, you can winter sow them, or you could sow them out naturally.
I have a question.
Yes.
Do you have to let so there are some poppies that I would like to collect. Do they have to dry out completely on the plant in the ground, or can I go ahead and chop those down and do that the same way and let them dry upside down and let the seed pods open?
Right, you can do
I
that.
can do that.
Yes.
I thought I
as
had to wait
long
till the
as-
little windows opened.
Well, yes, you want to maybe wait until the little windows open, but you want to make sure that you get them before that, you know, seed head and they shake out. So, you know,
Nice.
you can
Okay.
know. The other plant that I have a lot of is a native. Now, the hellebore wasn't, but this is the celandine poppy, and it's an early spring bloomer. And oh yeah, here's the little yellow, beautiful yellow flower. And then they make these pendulous little seed pods. They also have a sap that stains orange.
Yeah.
So I wear disposable gloves because right now I have enough of these, but you know, I always can share them. And so these little pods actually will split open kind of like balsam, and when they're ripe. So again, I have, you can see the little seeds inside. So again, I have them in a paper sack. They're labeled. I'm going to let them dry. The capsule will dry out and split up, and then I will have these wonderful seeds. Again, you can seed these right away, or you know, you can store them cool. This is something, and they can be winter sown or whatever. So all spring I'm starting to save columbine seed. I'm starting to save a lot of different seeds just to be able to share them and have them. So,
So one thing I've
yeah.
done, I was able to find fine net bags with a pull string, and so
Sure.
like on my hellebores, I went around each the flower heads that actually had done seed
And
Wow.
bagged them?
and
Wow.
put it around and then tied
look at
and
you.
pulled the little cord, and when they fall, they're going to fall into the
Right
bag.
into that bag.
And so then I've got all my seeds, because I was having trouble timing it so that when they were opening, and so I was losing a lot of seeds. So I said, well, I'm
Yeah.
going,
That's a
and
good
they're still
idea.
on the plant, so they're still growing.
can-
They're maturing.
yeah,
and
you can just hear it snap open. And again, the seed is white at first, but it will change colors to kind
As
of
it
a black
dries.
color
Yeah.
as it dries. But you know, these pods, and I had Hellebore Niger. Now these are all Hellebore orientalis, but the Niger seed that earlier, so that's already been stored to grow it. And I have tremendous success with hellebores.
Some of
Wonderful.
the newer varieties, like the wedding or the honey, I'm having trouble getting seeds to.
Yeah, they're double.
Yeah,
So they've lost some of that genetic potential to create the ovule and the stamen, and instead you just get more petals.
And I'm wondering, even they're hybrids, so I don't even know if I did get a few seeds, whether it would be true or not.
For the ones that reseed, yeah, I don't know. But for the ones that reseed, they'll drop them underneath the
Yeah.
plant and little babies come
Oh,
up.
yeah,
and they've stayed
Yeah.
true for me.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Great.
John, we're going to go to you. We've got a fruit tree question. This is from Pam Bertuca. I've got fruit trees, but I have two I'm concerned about. One is about 8 feet, and an apple that's about 6 feet. They're a bit spindly. Are they at risk? And so they sent a couple pictures in of the trees here. So obviously we're talking about cicadas, and we've talked a lot about what they like to eat, or not eat, but where they will lay their eggs. So are these trees at risk?
Well, I saw other problems with,
Okay.
Yes, if we get the cicadas like down in Effingham, I saw a picture where the
Oh
ground
my
was
gosh.
just covered with thousands, and they were that deep, the skeletons. And I saw a problem with the trees in that the grass was growing right up to the trunk. Yeah, you can see there's no circle of bare ground there, and grass can be allelopathic to small fruit trees especially.
Now, can you break that down? What does that mean?
Allelopathic there's a couple of ways that it is allelopathic. It means that it's going to slow or deter the growth of the other
Gotcha.
plant. Black walnut is one of those that is the jugalone in that. But as you can see in that, the grass is going to slow down the growth. It's going to do it by the chemical that it releases into the ground that slows that, but it also is going to rob the nutrients and the water from the tree from being healthy. And the other thing that we saw, and both Ella and I said that, you're going to possibly have some string trimmer damage or mower damage
Right.
along that. And so the other thing, and I don't know if you think that this is a problem, but that double branch on that one tree, whether that could be, I think I would eliminate one, because that's it looks like it's a very narrow crotch in there. And
Well, again, when you buy these fruit trees, most of them are grafted.
Yeah.
And so when you see a double trunk like that, you begin to wonder, that it was never produced that way in the nursery. Did a shoot, a sucker come up from below the graft? They may not be the same tree.
Yeah.
And so I would agree with John that if they flower at the same and everything, well, maybe you could keep them, but it's quite narrow. And usually apples, depending on your pruning cycle, on what kind of pruning structure you want to create, whether you're going to top them out or whether you're going to keep a central leader, but you do have to kind of open them up. And when you have two side by side, all these branches just cross, and that's not good.
so getting back to the cicada problem, yes, you could net those, and that might save them a little bit of damage. Most of the time, the cicadas, unless we get a huge amount, they'll set them back, but they're not going to kill the tree. But I think the bigger problem is the grass and.
Okay.
But if she wants to be sure, being they are already stressed from the grass, I would say she could get some netting and make sure that it's small enough that it keeps the cicadas out, and then tie them at the bottom, because they will come up out of the ground.
That's the most important part. Make sure it's tied off at the bottom. Okay, let's take a couple more questions. We've got some invasive plant questions that you guys are both going to tackle together. Let's do 60, Lily of the Valley. This is from Carol. She says that, how do you get rid of Lily of the Valley? They're beautiful, they smell nice when they're in bloom, but after that, she says it turns into an ugly brown mess. Also, the plants seem to double every year. Is there a way to stop this invasive guy? So, what are your thoughts for Carol and Lily of the Valley?
Oh, for lily of the valley, I have it. It's growing in an area under some trees, and it does go through a late summer decline when it starts to get hot and dry. But for me, it's more than I want to tackle and try to control. So instead, I've kind of embraced it. Now, I did create a physical border with putting in a piece of metal edging, and I thought, oh yeah, anything that gets on the other side, I'll stop it. Well, again, some of these plants have very aggressive underground rhizotomous root systems that can send up these shoots, and that's the way they spread. And so the thing with lily of the valley is planting them in an area where they are physically contained and not being able to escape. So between the house and the sidewalk, maybe on the north side, that might be a good place for it. But for example, in my timber area, this is now escaping. Now, of course, I just live in town, but imagine that this is in a more forest preserve or something. This would be a nightmare, you know, starting. And so again, you can try digging it out. It's very difficult. You can try smothering it, putting cardboard over the top and then some mulch. And over time, you know, there might be some things that pop up on the edges. And then, of course, there are chemical systemic controls that you can investigate as well.
Okay. That leads us right into 61. Robin Rolfe writes in, help. How do I get rid of this plant that is growing out of control in my 2 flower beds? I've tried pulling it out. I've tried digging it out, but I cannot get it all. So she did not name this plant. What is it? And I see you've got some too, Ella. What are some tips?
So this is Artemisia praeceptus, and it's very, very difficult.
Oh, I thought it was vulgaris. Well, we're not sure exactly the species.
It's Artemisia.
Artemisia, we'll go with that.
And once you have it, you're probably going to have it unless you kill the whole area. And the one thing that you don't want to do is till it. You till that area and hope that you're going to get it, because it's kind of like quackgrass. Every little root is going to put up, that's a whole new plant. It's not going to die back. So it'll develop into a new plant. The only way you can do it is if you actually, and she has her, it looks like a self-contained area. So she could, like Ella said earlier, with the lily of the valley, cover that with, you know, either black plastic and mulch it over it for 3-4 months to kill. You know, the black plastic is also going to, if it's in a sunny area, going to cook it a little bit. So it'll kill it might kill it back a little bit, other than just cardboard and mulch over that. But you can also use an herbicide on this one. And it's one of those things that, you know, she's got it in an area that actually is self-contained. So, you know, it's a pretty plant as far as I'm concerned. And it has some herbal qualities to it, but.
Anything to add to that, Ella?
Yeah, the one thing is that it is invasive because of its growth habit, but it is also non-native. So a lot of people are concerned about that. It has kind of a double whammy in that it can reseed. So one trick for where she has it is usually they say in early July, you would just go in and cut it back again. And that's actually what I did on my plant earlier this spring. I cut it back with just a string trimmer. And also where I have it, it's on a slope. And part of that is mowed. And of course, this plant can't really survive well when it's mowed. It's still, you know, in the grass a little bit, but nothing problematic. But I do cut the front of it back so that it's a little shorter. And because of the variegated foliage, I found it attractive. Unfortunately, a lot of plants in my garden now that I'm learning more about our environment and things are non-native invasives.
Yikes.
So for those you plant collectors. Choose wisely, and these turn up at plant sales because everybody has it.
Everybody's got an abundance.
And then you make the mistake of not researching your plant material, and away it goes.
And for as thick as hers, mine is not as thick. I think mine is a little bit more shady. So once it gets to about this height, I just pull it out, and it comes back, with no problem.
Yeah.
And I've got some other things in between it, so I'm kind of
Right.
resistant to.
This is something to just grow in a pot.
Yeah. That'd be the best thing.
Enjoy it in a pot, and then you can overwinter it in your garage or something like that. If and especially because they use this a lot. The green form is dried for certain ritual burning kind of
Gotcha.
practices or whatever.
We've got about 5 minutes left, John, and you brought some show and tells, so I would love for everyone to see those before we run out of time.
This is
Lavender.
lavender. Thank you. The reason I just wanted to make sure, a lot of people are planting it now and they have very bad luck. Lavender does not like wet feet.
That's right.
Put it on a slope, on a raised bed or something like that, and it does very well here if you put it in the right conditions, full sun, and but the wet feet, if it's water sitting on it for, I say 12 hours even, it's going to suffer. The roots just tend to really rot, and so.
Okay.
Yeah, and for us, when we're growing lavender, we use a special soil mix like we would use for a succulent, in that it is able to drain, because if you use those high organic soils, they root rot. I brought peonies, so everybody knows that the peonies are blooming right now, and what they might not know is that you can store peonies. Now, not like this, but my friend Karen, who you all know, sent me a TikTok video about a woman who uses these bags from when you buy like a comforter or something as a mini greenhouse. So I just to say, wouldn't that be fun? So you got a tip today that you can create your own mini greenhouse. But the other tip that I have is that you can store for up to 3 months, is what they say, these peonies, but they have to be cut when they're in the bud stage and they kind of feel like a marshmallow. And then what you're going to do is you're going to wrap them in newspaper. Okay? So you've taken off some of the lower leaves, and they're going to be stored dry. And
this is before they open.
Yes, before they open. So the flowers that I brought down here, are. So then you take them and you wrap them in newspaper, and you're going to secure that with some tape. And then they're going to go in a Ziploc bag. And you're going to press out all the air, and then this is just going to be put in your refrigerator. And then over the next 3 months, when you want to have a bouquet, you can take them out, make a fresh cut, put them in some warm water, and they should open up.
And they'll open.
Yeah.
Wow.
And of course, this is how florists have peonies for weddings that might be in June when the peony season is over.
It amazes me that you can do that for 3 months. But when I read that earlier, and I said, oh, surely. But yes, you can. They will.
Very nice. We've got about 2 minutes left. Anything else, John, you want to share with the class before we dismiss?
This is one of my hollyhocks. And I had a lot of people questioning hollyhocks. And this has had some insect damage, or
somebody's been munching on it.
Yes. Not flowering. And hollyhocks are biennial, so they grow their roots and their feet the first year, and then they'll bolt the next year, so to speak, and flower, and they'll last for bloom for quite a few years after that.
Right, because they continually reseed themselves. So then you have created this succession of plants. You have the 2-year-old plants with the 1-year-old plants, and they keep blooming.
And this is Melipodium, and it is a butter daisy. This one here kind of got a little bit of sunburn, but this is one of the, has these beautiful little yellow flowers, and it'll bloom from now until it freezes. And I usually save the seeds. It's a true annual, so you have to save the seeds, but it will reseed itself.
Lovely.
So,
Okay, we're out of time. It goes so fast. Thank you guys so much for coming and sharing your time and talents and knowledge. And thank you so much for watching. Hope you learned a lot. And we will see you next time on the next episode of Mid-American Gardener. Good night.